Howdy folks, and a great big welcome to each and every one of you. Well, that tune that I just finished playing is called the Clinch Mountain Backstep, and it was brought to us by Ralph Stanley. Ralph and Carter Stanley, his brother, formed the nucleus of a bluegrass band in the 40s and 50s. Actually, it was called the Clinch Mountain Boys, and Carter drank himself to death, but Ralph kept on until recently. So I hope you enjoyed the tune, and what I'd like to do now is a whole pile of Bible readings. So for those of you folks who are not interested in and do not want to hear anything read from the Bible, end the video now. I'll say adios, see you next time. Thanks for watching. But for those of you who are hanging on, I was been reading and studying Mark lately, and I keep running across this term, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. So I was always interested in why people refer to that so much. The stone that the builders rejected is mentioned 5 times in the Bible. I made notes. First of all, it's mentioned in Psalm 118, verse 22. It says, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." Then in Matthew chapter 21, verse 42, Jesus said to them, "Have you never read in the scriptures, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes." So he was talking to the Pharisees and asked them if they remembered that part from Psalm 118. And then in Mark chapter 12, verse 10, "Haven't you read this passage of Scripture? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." In Acts chapter 4, verse 11, "Jesus is the stone you builders rejected, which has become the cornerstone." And then 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 7 and 8, "Therefore to you who believe, Jesus is precious, but to those who are disobedient, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone, and a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense." Rock of offense literally means a stumbling stone. So I was wondering what all of this talk about stones, where that originated. But Psalm 118, where it's mentioned, is it's either a song or a prayer, and it's the last psalm that people recited before they started the festival of Passover. So I checked out Deuteronomy chapter 27, verses 5 and 6 says, "You should build an altar to the Lord your God, an altar of stones. Do not wield an iron tool over them. You must build the altar of the Lord your God of unhewn stones." So next what I did was I downloaded a bunch of Hebrew sayings. That the whole collection of them is called the Mishnah. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So what's a Mishnah? A Mishnah is an authoritative collection of exegetical material embodying the oral tradition of Jewish law and forming the first part of the Talmud. So it's a whole bunch of, and I mean a whole bunch of, hundreds and hundreds of oral rules and regulations that folks memorized Mishnah, the Hebrew root SHNH, which is part of the word Mishnah, means to repeat, and that refers to memorization by repetition. Mishnah, therefore, has the sense of that which is memorized by rote, as distinct from stuff that you read in Old Testament or whatever. Their designation for the Bible is called the Mikra, that which is read and recited from a written text. So, only bare facts are, for example, multiplication table. That's memorized by rote. And when we first learned it in school, nobody knew exactly what it meant, but you knew that 2 times 2 is 4, and so on, all the way up to 12 times 12. Only the bare facts of a subject, such as vocabulary or multiplication, are memorized or understood. Rote learning, in other words, learning by repetition, oral repetition, does not allow for complex connections between previous and new knowledge. It can also be very difficult to understand a concept only by using rote memory. So, I downloaded hundreds and hundreds of these oral rules and regulations, and the one that refers to building the altar that's mentioned in Deuteronomy, it's called the Mishnah Midot 3:4. Pardon me. The stones, both of the ascent and of the altar, in other words, the steps and the altar, were taken from the valley of Bet Karem. Bet Karem is close to Jerusalem. They dug into virgin soil and brought from there whole stones on which no iron had been lifted, since iron disqualifies by mere touch, though a flaw made by anything could also disqualify. So when they were building the temple, they rejected any stone that had been, you couldn't quarry a stone using iron tools. And on it goes here. Rules and regulations. They will have to, the stones were whitewashed twice a year, once at Pesach and once at Hag. And the sanctuary was whitewashed once a year on account of bloodstains. On and on it goes. The porch. So these stones that had never been touched with iron tools also were used to build the steps going up to the altar. So when they put on plaster on these stones when they were building, they did not use an iron trowel for fear that would disqualify the stones. Since iron was created to shorten man's days, and the altar was created to prolong man's days, and it is not right, therefore, that which shortens should be lifted against that which prolongs. This section, this Mishnah Midot, explains why iron disqualifies the stones of the altar. The material that is used to destroy life should be kept away from the altar, whose ultimate purpose is to provide and lengthen life. Well, when Jesus was crucified, what did they use? Iron nails to nail him to the cross. So, in a sense, Jesus was the stone that was touched with iron. He was disqualified by the Jewish people, and he became the cornerstone of the new covenant that God set up. So it all kind of hangs together. The cornerstone that the builders rejected, the stone that the builders rejected has become our cornerstone, the foundation on which the church is built. Anyway, so it was interesting poking around and finding this stuff out, especially about the iron business. So I hope you enjoyed all of those verses. Down below there's a section for comments and questions, so if you have any comments, please leave them down there. Hope you enjoyed the tune, and I hope you enjoyed the little study that I did of how Jesus is the cornerstone. And now comes the time for me to say God bless, and we'll see you down the road.